Hey gang, sorry, haven't posted in a while. Went on a little trip, a little vacation, yay, for the first time in God knows how long. So took a little vacation, and of course, was down in Vegas, 70-degree weather, it was beautiful, it was beautiful. And of course, when I come home, that's when we were in like the single digits with wind chills down in minus whatever degrees. So of course my bronchitis kicks in and the whole thing, and I didn't want to start making videos and coughing all over the place. So I still feel it's still hanging in there a little bit, but we'll make it through. Okay, so I just wanted to do little updates. I know a lot of you have been seeing in your feed about the State of the Union address. Eh, I mean, come on, I'm not gonna really go into it. The biggest thing that really hit was the statement, that he's done the death of DEI. It's like, oh, come on, and companies turn around and stopping their DEI initiatives and all of that. And yes, that was the one of his first executive orders to get rid of it. And everybody that has ever done anything wrong is a DEI hire. Um, not like Noam or Hegseth or Bondi. They're not DEI hires, but because of course everything needs to be based on merit. Yeah, Hegseth, the weekend warrior, has more merit than what? How many generals and admirals that have 20, 30, 40 years experience? And forget it. Okay. I'm not going to go into that stuff. Yeah. But what I wanted to go into a little bit is, just continuing this year, 2026. This is a tough year. It's midterms, and we have to do things. And I just want to bring you up to speed as to something that's happened. And first of all, I want to say a lot of you know me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I'm a Virgo. I'm logical. I like to see things and connect dots in a logical manner. So something that actually just came up. I'm gonna pop it up here in Kansas. And I know you're gonna say it's Kansas. Come on, the land of Wizard of Oz. It's Dorothy and Toto and everything. Nothing to do with New York, but this just happened a couple of days ago on the 18th. And I want you to think of start empty out your brain, start thinking logical. Let's connect dots. So Kansas sends letters to over 1,000 trans people. It's actually almost about 1,500 trans people, warning them to surrender their driver's licenses and birth certificates. Okay? The warning came after state lawmakers passed an anti-trans bill on February 18th, invalidating gender marker changes on the documents. So surrender your driver's license and surrender your birth certificate. Now let's start playing connected dots here. And let's start thinking logically. And by thinking logically, I mean, let's gather information that's around us, things that have happened, things that are happening in this country today. First of all, I did a little bit of research. Okay. Kansas. The population of the state of Kansas is about 3 million people. Okay. Compare that to New York. New York has about 20 million people. But Kansas, okay, 3 million people. Okay. Out of those 3 million people, just about 2 million of them are licensed drivers. Now, you have your driver's license. Your driver's license has your gender marker on it. M for male, F for female. And some states, and New York has it also, where if you're non-binary, you can have X as your gender marker. Okay. How does that start asking yourself questions? Let's play detective here. How does the driver's license tell lawmakers that you're transgender? Well, we have to go to birth certificate. What were you? What your sex assigned at birth? So they have to take 2 million, a database of 2 million people with driver's licenses, compare those to 2 million birth certificates, and see, well, this birth certificate says M, but the driver's license says F. So that person must be transgender. Could it have been a clerical error? Oh, I doubt it, because, everybody is 100% perfect and there are no clerical errors. But, okay, so that's how they would have to do, is comparing databases. To take the time to go through over 2 million, for 2 million people, these two documents, so you're talking about 4 million documents to try and put them all together. How much money was spent? The taxpayers of Kansas, how much did they spend to do this for about 1,500 people, 1,500 trans people out of 2 million? That is 0.075% of the number of licensed drivers. 1,500 licensed drivers out of 2 million. So it's 0.0, so it's 7/100ths of a percent. Okay, why? Why? Let's continue to ask questions. Come on, this is like the detectives on, like NYPD Blue or SUV, SVU, or stuff like that. Ask yourself questions. Let's play detective. Why? The GOP lawmakers did this. Well, GOP, okay, well, the Democratic governor vetoed the bill, but the GOP legislature overrode the veto, so it's passed. Okay. Well, why? What happens if now your birth certificate, let's forget about the driver's license, your birth certificate now, you have to surrender it. It's invalid. What happens to you if your birth certificate is now invalid? If you're on Social Security, what happens to the Social Security? It's gone. If you have a passport, I mean, how many people in Kansas have a passport? If you have a passport is now invalid, because how else are you going to prove your citizenship without the birth certificate? And let's look at what has been going on in this country in some states where there are federal agents going after people of color, not just in some states, in here actually. I mean, they've been in Riverhead and they've been in Brentwood and all of these other areas, going into schools to take, the worst of the worst. Yeah, 8, 9 year olds are the worst of the worst. But people of color, but wait a second. Now, if I no longer have a valid birth certificate, am I still considered a citizen, a legal citizen? Or can I now be considered to be an an undocumented, illegal person living in this country? Will these 1,500 people, because now they have their addresses, because they have their driver's licenses, so will these people get knocks on the door from ICE because now transgender people are illegal? Let's connect the dots. Let's start thinking logically about things that, yes, we're saying that, well, it can happen. Am I reaching for this? I don't know. If you think about it, it's kind of like, well, is this really a reach? Is this like really a stretch? I don't know. And then we come back to, well, that's Kansas. It's not going to happen here in New York. I mean, come on. Yeah, well, at this point in time, because remember, the midterms coming up this November, in a couple of months, about 8 months, 8, 9 months, the at this point, the Republican candidate is Bruce Blakeman, who's going after Kathy Hochul. And those of you in Nassau County know, because he's the Nassau County executive, he was the first one to start the entire thing about trans athletes in sports, and banning them and all of that stuff. And of course, it got to a point where Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, stepped in and said it's all illegal for you to do that. But if he becomes governor, then she's no longer the Attorney General. He put somebody else in who will do what he wants to do. And what else did he say that he was going to do? Oh, yeah, that's right. Citizens who have firearms can be deputized to, to watch over and patrol their neighborhoods. That went away really quick. But that's the mindset. That's the mindset. He at this point he's the Republican candidate for the RNC candidate for governor of New York. Okay? Now you may not like Hochul, but it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. What are we going to do? Same thing. All of the others, these midterm elections, we have to do things. What else the GOP doing? The biggest thing is now abortion. Let's go back to that. They're bringing that back, the entire abortion argument and that entire discussion, to the point where South Carolina, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Indiana are considering bills to classify abortion as a homicide, which means that a patient who has an abortion can be charged with murder. And out of those 4 states, 3 of them have the death penalty for murder. So if a woman has an abortion, she can be put to death. Again, you could sit there and say, well, that's South Carolina. That's them. That's Oklahoma. That's them. That's North Dakota. That's them. That's Indiana. That's them. It's not us. If the GOP starts running New York, what's going to happen? New York State. Think about it. And it's not just abortion. It's women's health. That whole thing is coming back to us. These are the topics. These are the talking points that are coming back. Know what's going on around us. Know the whole thing. And yes, the transgender thing is coming back. More and more bills, banning, transgender people from restrooms. There's restroom ban bills that are starting to come back again. That whole talk is coming back where, only somebody of the biological sex can utilize the bathroom. Well, in one of my other videos, I showed this, and let me put it back up again. To Aiden Dowling, okay? On the cover of Men's Health, he's actually this guy right here on the end. And if you notice that, you probably can't see it too well, there's like little, titles above each of them. And above him, it's a pioneer. He's a pioneer. Okay, why is Aiden Dowling a pioneer? Because Aiden Dowling is the first trans man to be on the cover of Men's Health. Trans man. That means biologically, if you're looking at genetics, Aiden Dowling is a female. Biologically. So, you can only use the restroom of the sex that you were assigned at birth. Aiden Dowling at birth was assigned female. So Aiden Dowling is going to be in the women's room, in the women's restroom. I mean, you start thinking about this and you're saying, yeah, okay, Tam, a lot of this is just total stupidity. All of this stuff is just total stupidity. Yeah, it is. You need to stand up to the stupidity. You need to be able to sit there and say, wait a second, we have to stop this stupidity. Well, I don't want to get political. I don't like talking about these things. I don't want, if you're not going to like talking about them, then it's going to happen and it's going to steamroll right over you. I'm sorry, not talking about something like silence. The act of being silent, that's not, yeah, that's sticking your head in the sand. The act of silence, of being silent, yeah, well, that's submission. Silence is submission. Do you really want to submit to this? Because, like the saying goes, they come for me at the night in the morning, they're going to come for you at nighttime. Because something will snap in the Mad King's brain, and all of a sudden, this other group he's not going to like. And let's go after them. And then all of a sudden, oh, he's going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and do another, you know, tweet on Truth Social, on his thing. And it's going to be, oh, yeah, well, then this group should be next. And then that group should be next. He's already wants to appoint people to not just his cabinet, but also to secretary positions that are known white supremacists, are known white supremacists and Christian nationalists who say this country should be Christian. Forget about the Jews. Forget about the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Muslims, the atheists. Christian. There is a separation of church and state. There's there's the Establishment Clause in the Constitution, the separation of church and state. So the founding fathers were not Christian. They made it a point to write into the Constitution that there has to be a separation between the two. So whenever you hear our founding fathers are Christian men, no, they're not. And if you are Christian, you should be so pissed off at them. And you should be so pissed off at these people. And you should be so pissed off that you start saying things. If someone says something to you, you say, you know what? No, we're not going to talk about that because of blah, 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 blah. You need to do that. You need to talk because it's just going to steamroll right over you. And you're going to wake up one morning and there's going to be tanks going down the street. People, of course, wearing masks and those carriers, tactical carriers that say have police on them or ICE. Make sure to go on one of the other videos. I could get one of those tactical carriers from eBay for $49.95. Okay, with not even camel pants. You look at some of these guys, what are they wearing? They're wearing jeans. Jeans with a baseball cap and a carrier over their hoodie saying, I'm a federal agent. Really? You need to speak up. This needs to happen. This needs to happen. This November, you need to be out there. And I don't ever want to hear anybody say, yeah, I know, the GOP, they've been doing a whole lot of bad things. But you know what? I've been voting this way for my whole life, so why should I stop now? Come on. I want you to normalize something on all of your posts, social media posts. Hashtag, vote the person, not the party. Vote the person, not the party. Because when was the last time that it was put out all over the place for the good of the party? That was 1930s Germany. I mean, it was. This is where we are. This is where we are. The rest of the world is laughing at us. Laughing at us. There's a bill it was actually stopped the construction of a rail tunnel underneath the Hudson River between New York and New Jersey. It would save commuters and just mass transit and commerce and everything. It was already funded billions of dollars to do this, but it would save so much more. And you know what? That bill was stopped. And, well, the Mad King says, well, if you name Madison Square Garden after me, I could probably start it up again. even though he denies saying that. Somebody else said that Madison Square Garden, Penn Station, should be named after me. I don't want it, but come on, you know he wants everything named after him. He already made a statement a while ago, Dulles Airport, he wants that named after him too. He already put his name on the Kennedy Center. Come on. You need to speak up. That's it. You need to speak up. This is no longer the United States of America. I'm sorry. This is no longer the United States of America. The founding fathers are spinning in their graves because of this. And if you claim to be a Christian and follow what they're doing of taking away food, of taking away healthcare, those are not Christian principles. Those are not principles for any true religion. It's not. So please, you have to. You have to. And I'm telling you, where are we, if not, then what road is a potential road for us to go down? Like I said, 2024, a movie came out called Civil War. You need to find it. It's on, whatever one of the movie channels or something like that. Civil War, it's a 2024 movie with Kirsten Dunst. You need to. One of the most powerful lines, there's so many, but in that movie is where the main characters is a group of main characters, and they're driving, through the country, and there are these other guys that are wearing camo and everything like that with automatic weapons, and they're ready to shoot them, and the guy with the automatic weapons, was standing there, and one of the main characters says, "Yeah, but we're Americans," and the guy with the automatic weapon says, "Okay, what kind of American?" Said, "Holy crap!" You know that I'm telling you, that's where it comes down for. That's where it comes down to. And no, I'm just reaching. No, I'm not overreacting. I'm looking at things logically, and if you know me, you know that's how I think. I'm trying to connect dots to hopefully get to a point where it's like, okay, this is the logical route. Hopefully, it doesn't go that way, and it's only up to us to do that because we have to wear life gloriously. Because up until last minute, the future is what we make it. So please, you need to you need to do your part. You need to stand up. You need to speak. You need to go to meetings, town hall meetings. You need to write to your legislators and say, this is what you need to do. Because remember, it's a government for the people, by the people. When they go through and they're doing their campaigning, which is starting now, remember, that's their job interview. That's their job interview. And how many of them lie on the campaign trail? I mean, yeah, Bruce Blakeman, I'm going to cut your taxes in half. How? I just want one person to stand up in one of his town hall meetings and say, okay, how? How are you going to do it? I'm going to cut your your power bill in half. How? How? It's run by a private company. How are you going to cut my bill in half? And everybody says, well, campaign, things said on a campaign, we know that they're all lies. Yes, so call them out on it. Throw some balls. You're the boss. We are the boss of them. That's why they're called representatives, because they represent us. That's why they are called public servants, because they serve us. Understand this. Please understand this and take action. Because if not, then what's going to happen? Okay, people are going to not have their driver's licenses anymore or their birth certificates. They're not going to be considered legal citizens because they have now they no longer have birth certificates. And then what else is going to happen? Aim's going to be walking into the bathroom with your daughter. Yikes. Come on, take a stand, do something. You know, there's a meme. Takes balls to be a woman. Yeah, well, it takes balls. You gotta grow some, and you gotta take the stand and know where you fit in. You what your cog is, and we are a very big cog in the political wheel. You know, don't be the average American voter who's a moron who has no clue as to any of this stuff. Learn about it. So, thanks. That's my rant. And hopefully I don't get a knock on the door with somebody with a mask saying you're coming with me. So, see you in the funny papers.